everybody, Trevor here, and I'm back with a brand new top video regarding Thomas and Friends. It's been a while since my last one, hasn't it? Before we get started, I just want to say thank you so much for giving me over 5.1 thousand subscribers. It really helps me a lot. Today's topic will be about my top 6 eras of Thomas and Friends, ranking from worst to best. This is my second time doing it, with the first one being my top 5 double-length Thomas specials, which I'm glad a lot of people enjoyed watching. Now without wasting any more time, let's get started. Number 6 is obviously All Engines Go. Alright, in order to not sound like a broken record, I'll provide a few links in the description below on why I consider this the worst thing to come out of Thomas the Tank Engine. However, like all bad reboots, it does have a few positives. In fact, I've made a top 5 video about the good aspects of the show, which is also in the description. And if you legitimately like this show, that's perfectly fine. Just don't attack the haters for not liking it, especially me. Number 5 is the Sharon Miller era, which is seasons 13 through 16. Like the All Engines Go era, this is one of those bad eras that I've ranted on so many times due to how boring and slow it is. Not to mention the unnecessary rhyming and alliteration, which is basically filler. And like I've said in my top 10 worst Sharon Miller episodes video, I don't hate Sharon Miller as a person, nor was I trying to attack her in any way. I just thought her writing could have used some tweaking here and there. Lastly, like All Engines Go, I'll provide a few links in the description below just so I won't repeat myself on why I didn't like this era very much. Number 4 is the Big World Big Adventures era, which is seasons 22 to 24. A lot of people in the fandom consider this worse than the Sharon Miller era in terms of pacing and cartooniness. And if you've been following me for a very long time, I actually consider the Big World Big Adventures era a mixed bag. Don't get me wrong, I can understand why people hate this new era with a flaming passion, but you have to give it at least some credit. At least it had classic nods to the Railway series, classic TV series, and the previous CGI era, which was written by head writer Andrew Brenner. I also don't mind some of the new characters like Kenji because they look pretty cool. Though sadly, others like Bo and Kwaku didn't get that much screen time nor merchandise, which is such a waste in my opinion. As for the bouncing, well, it is distracting at times, but personally, I'm kind of 50-50 on it because it makes me think of Pixar's Cars in a way, and it also makes the Thomas characters look more expressive. Though I still prefer their static bodies that were used in seasons 1 to 21, just so they can move like actual real-life vehicles instead of being cartoony. If you want more information on my thoughts on Big World Big Adventures as a whole, I'll provide another link into the description as well. So, all in all, seasons 22 to 24 are so-so. Not as good as seasons 17 through 21, which I'll get to later, but at the same time, could have been a lot better if it wasn't rushed through production and had more consistency here and there. But hey, at least it's not as boring as the Sharon Miller era. Number 3 is the New Model era, which is seasons 8 to 12 as well as the pack episodes. I'll admit, I used to like this era when I was a teenager, but looking back at it now, I'm starting to think it's overall average. Let me explain why. While the new camera quality is quite fine in my opinion, I still prefer the original 35mm camera that was used in seasons 1 to 7. The engine roll call theme is also okay, but not as memorable as the original theme song by Junior Campbell and Michael Donnell. Even Michael Brandon was an okay narrator in the US dub, though his impressions for some of the characters can get really irritating after a while. Michelangelos, on the other hand, was good too during the classic era, but I can tell that he sounded bored while narrating seasons 8 to 16 of the show. But the worst part of the New Model era, in my opinion, will have to be the botched characters. For example, they made the narrow gauge engines act like young ones, while Edward, Henry, and Toby are no longer wise engines. I know that this is a kids show, but that doesn't mean you have to put a lack of effort into your stories. In fact, botching somebody's character arc doesn't always help. That's why research is good for you. But aside from the negatives, this era also has plenty of positives. For example, I don't mind Emily being part of the main cast, aka the STEAM team, because I like to have some females every now and again just for the spotlight. Seasons 8 to 12 also had plenty of good episodes, such as Toby Feels Left Out, which I've done a mini review on already, and Respect for Gordon, which many people consider the best episode of this period. I can even say the same thing for the Jack in the Pack spin off series, which is technically part of this era too. So overall, the new model era, as well as seasons 12 and the Pack episodes, are average at best. But they're not the worst seasons. But they could have been better too. Number 2, the Renaissance era, aka seasons 17 through 21. If you've been following me for a long time, the Renaissance era, which is a mix between Andrew Brenner and Renaissance by fans, is my second favorite era of the original Thomas franchise, and the absolute best of the CGI series in terms of consistency, better writing, better character arcs, and additional humor for all ages. This is an improvement over the Sharon Miller era because of these reasons alone. And I like to thank people like Andrew Brenner for bringing back Thomas to his original roots like how he was supposed to in the first place. My favorite of these seasons is season 20 because not only they made interesting new characters like Bradford and Hugo, but they also adapted 3 stories from the Small Railway Engines book, which was originally written by the Reverend Wilbur Awdry. If you want more information on why I love this era so much, just watch the 3-part top 25 favorite episodes from the Andrew Brenner era. Link is in the description below. But unfortunately, this era was too good to last, since it slowly got replaced by the Big World Big Adventures era in 2018. I really wish that they finished certain plot threads from season 20, particularly with the Earl's upcoming Railway Museum, which was dropped for some stupid reason. But all in all, when it comes to CGI Thomas in general, the Renaissance era will always be the absolute best one because of these reasons alone. I highly suggest that you give it an honest watch. And the number 1 spot is obviously the Classic era, aka seasons 1 to 7. You knew this was coming, didn't you? The reason seasons 1 to 7 are on the number 1 spot is mainly because this is how I got introduced to Thomas and Friends in the first place. Not to mention that this series was originally brought to television by Britt Allcroft, who was one of my favorite role models. While I hardly grew up with Shine Time Station that much as a kid, but thankfully, I managed to see all the existing episodes at the time by owning all the VHS tapes, including the very first one. However, like all great shows, the classic series isn't perfect. For example, if you don't count Thomas Magic Railroad nor the Japanese dub of the original show, this one doesn't have any voice actors aside from the narrators doing all the voices while telling the stories at the same time. I kinda wish they had individual voice actors in the UK and US dubs to begin with. Also, like the previous eras I mentioned, the classic series does have its duds, like Middle Engine from season 6 for example. Man, that episode was wasted potential. But other than those things, seasons 1 to 7 will always be the king of all Thomas eras because this is how it started, and how the original show became very successful in the first place. Whether you're a longtime Thomas fan like me, or if you're new to Thomas in general, I seriously suggest that you give these seasons an honest chance because they're just that great. Now let me know your thoughts down below on which of these eras are your favorite. Do you agree with my list or do you have your own personal preference? Join me in next time where I'll be doing a top 10 favorite Ed, Edd and Eddy episodes, since this year marks the 25th anniversary of the franchise. This is Trevor Davis signing off and saying, Happy New Year everyone!